You people don't belong here. Get to the back where you belong. Cheryl Hampton blocks Frederick and Sarah Taylor from their first-class seats. Every passenger watches. She grabs their boarding passes, rips them in half, throws the pieces at Fred's chest. How did you afford this? Lottery? Stolen credit cards? Ma'am, we paid full fare. I don't believe that. Cheryl signals security, voice loud enough for everyone. These two are refusing to leave. They're threatening me. Fred hasn't moved, hasn't raised his voice. Security approaches anyway. A businessman in 1C nods. Finally. An elderly woman clutches her purse tighter as they pass, like their skin is contagious. Sarah films everything. Her hand shakes, but her face stays cold. What happens next will shock everyone on this plane. Have you ever been judged before someone knew who you really were? Comment below. 20 minutes earlier, Frederick and Sarah Taylor had walked through airport security hand in hand, giddy as teenagers. 15 years married today. They'd saved for 8 months, skipping dinners out, canceling subscriptions, putting every spare dollar toward this one splurge, first class to Hawaii. Fred had surprised Sarah with the tickets last month. She'd cried. They'd never flown anything but economy, crammed in the back with crying babies and broken tray tables. But this anniversary deserved something special. Now, as they settle into seats 2A and 2B, Fred notices the stares. The elderly white woman in 3B clutches her Hermes bag against her chest like a shield. The businessman in 1C makes deliberate eye contact with Cheryl, eyebrows raised in a silent question. Are you seeing this? Sarah pretends not to notice. She's had practice. 38 years of practice. Cheryl Hampton watches them from the galley, jaw tight. 12 years as senior flight attendant. 12 years of knowing who belongs in first class and who doesn't. These two? They don't fit. Designer knockoff dress. Suit that's a little too pressed, like someone trying too hard. She pulls out her phone. Texts the gate agent. Cheryl, confirm 2A and 2B paid full fare? The response comes fast. Gate agent. Yes, full fare. 3 months ago. Problem? Cheryl doesn't reply. Her fingers tighten around her phone. Jake approaches, young, eager, desperate to impress the senior crew. Cheryl leans close, whispers something. Jake's eyes widen. He nods quickly. They begin what Cheryl calls verification protocol. Sir, ma'am, may I see your boarding passes again? Jake's voice is too polite. The kind of polite that isn't polite at all. Fred hands them over without argument. Sarah's hand finds his under the armrest, squeezes once, a silent language they've developed over 15 years. And your IDs, please? Cheryl appears beside Jake now, reinforcements. We already showed these at the gate, Sarah says. Her voice is calm, steady, but there's steel underneath. Just ensuring all our first-class passengers are correctly seated. Cheryl emphasizes the word like a weapon. Around them, passengers shift. Some pull out phones, not to help, just to record. A young Asian woman in 3A looks disturbed but says nothing. The businessman in 1C smirks openly now. Fred complies. He always complies. Hands over his driver's license, his credit card, his boarding pass, again. What none of them see, the small leather portfolio in his carry-on. Inside, a badge. Federal Aviation Administration. Inspector credentials. Investigation authority that can ground airlines, suspend crews, destroy careers. But Fred and Sarah never announce it. That's not how undercover works. Cheryl takes the documents to the galley, pulls out a laminated card from her folder. The title reads, Passenger Removal Protocol. She begins reading. Cheryl picks up the phone and dials the captain's direct line. Sarah Taylor has investigated 212 incidents in her 15 years with the FAA. She knows the playbook, knows it before Cheryl even opens her mouth. The flight attendant is building a case, fabricating justification, creating a paper trail that doesn't exist. Sarah leans toward Fred, voice barely a whisper. She's going to try something. Stay calm. Fred nods. His hand rests on the armrest, steady. Let her. Cheryl returns with reinforcements, Jake and another attendant named Brian, a bulky man who positions himself to block the aisle. The wall of bodies sends a clear message. Sir, ma'am. Cheryl's voice has shifted. All business now. All authority. We've received complaints about an altercation at the gate. Fred's eyebrows rise. What altercation? We boarded peacefully. Nevertheless, multiple passengers reported aggressive behavior. Cheryl doesn't blink. The lie comes smooth as silk. Sarah's jaw tightens. I'd like the names of these passengers making complaints. That's confidential. Then I'd like to speak with the captain. For just a second, Cheryl's mask cracks. A flash of panic crosses her face before she smooths it away. That won't be necessary. Brian steps closer, voice harder than Cheryl's. Folks, you need to deplane. Now. We have valid tickets. Fred keeps his voice level even as his pulse hammers. We've done nothing wrong. You're causing a disturbance, Cheryl snaps. The businessman in 1C suddenly sits forward, like he's been waiting for his cue. Yeah, I saw them arguing earlier. At the gate. They were really aggressive. Sarah's head whips toward him. We've never seen you before in our lives. He shrugs, smirks. That's not what I saw. Jake pulls out his phone, fingers hovering over the screen. Should I call security? The Asian woman in 3A stands abruptly. Stop this. They didn't do anything. I saw everything from the gate to here. They were polite and quiet. Cheryl's voice turns sharp as broken glass. Ma'am, please stay out of this, or you'll be removed as well. The woman's face goes pale, but she hits record on her phone. Put that away, Cheryl demands. No. The woman's voice shakes, but she keeps filming. Sarah's hand moves to her smartwatch. Casual, natural. She taps twice, voice memo activates. Fred angles his phone in his jacket pocket, camera lens facing forward. Everything is being documented now. Cheryl lifts her radio to her lips, eyes locked on Fred and Sarah like they're criminals. Her voice echoes through the cabin. Captain Reynolds, this is Hampton. We have a code amber in first class, requesting immediate removal of passengers 2A and 2B before departure. The captain's voice crackles back. Security is on their way. The intercom crackles. Ladies and gentlemen, this is your captain. We're experiencing a slight delay. 2 airport security officers board. One older with graying temples, one younger with a hand near his belt. Fred sees them and knows exactly how this plays. Black man, airplane, security. One wrong move and this ends badly. He raises his hand slowly, palms out, visible. Officers, we're complying. No resistance. The older officer, Morrison, looks uncomfortable. What's the issue here? Cheryl's voice sharpens with urgency. These passengers became belligerent and refused crew instructions. They used threatening language. Morrison turns to Fred. Sir, is that true? No. We boarded, sat down, showed our tickets multiple times. No incident occurred. The younger officer, Davis, steps closer. Sir, the crew has authority. You need to come with us. Sarah's voice cuts in, controlled but steel-edged. Under what regulation? We violated no law. Davis's jaw tightens. Ma'am, don't make this harder. Fred meets Sarah's eyes. A lifetime of conversations passes in that glance. She nods once. They stand. The walk down the aisle stretches endlessly. Every seat occupied, every passenger watching. Phones rise like a forest, recording their humiliation for the world. The businessman in 1C mutters loud enough to be heard. Finally, about time! Fred's fists clench, but he keeps walking. Sarah beside him, spine straight, face carved stone. Her eyes burn with something that will consume everything. Behind them, Jake trails at the back, stomach churning. This feels wrong. He's seen Cheryl do this before, 3 times this year, always to passengers of color. But he's 23. This job pays his rent, so he stays silent. The guilt already gnaws. In the jetway, the gate agent looks confused. Wait, their tickets are valid. Full fare, paid months ago. Why remove them? Cheryl doesn't miss a beat. Disruptive behavior. It's documented. It isn't. The gate agent looks at Fred and Sarah, calm, composed, clearly sober. You can rebook on tomorrow's flight. Sarah's voice could cut diamonds. We're filing a complaint. Cheryl hands them a form. Passenger removal report. Already filled out. Fred reads it and laughs, bitter, sharp. This says we were intoxicated and abusive. Complete fiction. That's your opinion. Cheryl turns to leave, victory in her stride. Morrison shifts uncomfortably. Ma'am, sir, I'm sorry about this. At least someone has a conscience. Sarah pulls out her phone. Dials. Her voice stays quiet but clear. This is Inspector Taylor. FAA flight standards. We have a situation. Pause. Yes, Flight 528, Celestial Airways. The voice on the other end speaks. Sarah listens. No, let it play out completely. I want everything documented first. Jake stands 10 feet away, pretending to check his phone, but he hears every word. Inspector, FAA, flight standards. His face drains white. Hands start shaking. He pulls out his phone with trembling fingers, types. "Inspector Taylor, FAA, the results load." His stomach drops through the floor. A photo appears. Sarah Taylor receiving a federal commendation for exposing airline fraud. Then another search. Frederick Taylor, FAA. Same agency, same office, same authority. Jake just realized they removed 2 federal inspectors from a plane based on lies. Jake knows his career just ended before it began. Airport terminal. Gate 23, 6:45 p.m. Fred and Sarah sit in molded plastic chairs, their Hawaii trip in ruins. Around them, other passengers rush to catch flights. Nobody looks at them. Nobody asks if they're okay. Fred's voice comes out tight. 15 years, Sarah. 15 years we've dealt with this. And we've always stayed quiet. Sarah opens her leather portfolio. Inside, FAA inspector credentials, incident report forms, recording devices. Played by the rules. Not this time. Sarah pulls out a regulation handbook, flips to a marked page. Flight 528 wasn't random for us. Fred looks at her. What do you mean? Celestial Airways is already under FAA review, safety violations, maintenance shortcuts, crew training deficiencies. She meets his eyes. We were traveling undercover to conduct a surprise inspection of their Honolulu hub. Fred processes this. The airline doesn't know we're coming. Didn't know. Past tense. Sarah's smile is razor thin. What just happened? That's a gift. Documented discrimination by senior crew, on camera, with witnesses. She dials a number, puts it on speaker. Regional Director Johnson. Director, it's Inspector Taylor. We were removed from Flight 528. A pause. Removed? Why? Racial discrimination. Crew fabricated charges. Security escorted us off. I'm sending video and audio files now. Sarah's fingers move across her phone. Files upload. Another pause. Longer this time. Sarah, are you certain you want to proceed with this? This could get big. Media, lawsuits. Absolutely. Sarah's voice doesn't waver. We document discrimination incidents all the time. Now we're the victims. We have standing. We have evidence. We have authority. Fred leans toward the phone. Let it get big. Director Johnson exhales slowly. I'm escalating this to Washington. Do not contact the airline yet. We won't, Sarah says. Let them think they won. I'm dispatching a team to interview passengers tonight. That woman who defended you, we'll need her statement. The one who filmed everything. Fred stares at the departure board where Flight 528 now reads departed. The crew has no idea who we are. They will. Johnson's voice hardens. Tomorrow morning, 9 a.m., we're grounding that entire crew for investigation. Full interviews, full review. And the airline? Sarah asks. Complete audit. Every violation we find, and we'll find them, goes public. If this discrimination is systemic, if management knew and ignored it. Johnson trails off. They could lose operating certificates, routes, everything. Fred looks at the empty gate where they should be boarding, where they should be celebrating 15 years of marriage at 30,000 feet. Instead, they're here, humiliated, angry, but also powerful. Everyone who stayed silent, Fred says quietly. Everyone who lied. They're all going to answer. Sarah touches his hand. We do this by the book, thoroughly, legally, but we do it completely. That's what makes it worse for them, Fred replies. They can't claim vindictiveness. This is federal, legal, unstoppable. 20,000 feet above them, Flight 528 reaches cruising altitude. Jake sits in the rear galley, phone clutched in shaking hands. He's Googled both names now, read their credentials, their case histories, their commendations. He didn't just witness discrimination, he participated in it. Against federal inspectors who can destroy careers. His career just ended at 23. Sarah forwards the complete incident file flagged priority. Federal employees targeted. Flight 528. Cruising altitude, 32,000 feet. Cheryl feels victorious. Another problem solved. She leans against the galley counter, pouring wine. Brian appears beside her, grinning. Can you believe those two thought they belonged up here? Cheryl laughs. Probably stolen credit cards? Jake stands nearby, face pale, phone trembling in his hands. A passenger approaches. Mid-40s, sharp suit, conference name tag visible. Dr. Linda Wilson, civil rights attorney. I recorded everything. That was racial profiling. Cheryl's smile tightens. Ma'am, we followed protocol. I'm a civil rights attorney. That wasn't protocol. That was discrimination. I've filed a complaint with the Department of Transportation. Are you threatening me? I'm informing you. Dr. Wilson's voice stays level. Contact your union representative soon. Other passengers stand now. Man in 4B, she's right. They did nothing wrong. Woman in 3C, I felt sick watching that. The businessman in 1C shifts uncomfortably. They were aggressive. Man in 4B cuts him off. You're lying. They were quiet. You made that up. Cheryl's voice cracks. Return to your seats. Dr. Wilson stays standing. What were their names? The couple you removed? That's confidential. Not for long. Discovery reveals everything. Dr. Wilson sits, phone still recording. Cheryl retreats to the rear galley, hands shaking. This wasn't supposed to happen. Jake pulls up search results with trembling fingers. Sarah Taylor, FAA Senior Inspector. 15-year service Frederick Taylor, FAA Senior Inspector. Former military pilot. His heart stops. They kicked federal inspectors off a plane, based on lies, fabricated reports. He's ruined. In the cockpit, Captain Reynolds receives a message from dispatch. Dispatch, 2 passengers removed from your flight filing federal complaints. Reynolds, who authorized removal? Dispatch, Hampton. 3rd incident this month. Reynolds, corporate wants a report? Dispatch, demanding one immediately. This one's serious. Reynolds closes his eyes. This is bad. Cheryl has been a problem for months. Complaints, incidents, passengers angry, but corporate never acts, too afraid of the union. Maybe now they'll have to. He doesn't know how serious this really is. Nobody on this plane does yet. Back in the terminal, Sarah's phone buzzes. Director Johnson calling back. Sarah, I've escalated this. Washington wants a full investigation. They're sending a team tonight. Good. And Sarah, the media is going to pick this up. Be ready. Sarah looks at Fred. He nods. They're ready. Director Johnson emails the White House Civil Rights Office. Federal employees targeted. 11 p.m. Flight 528 touches down in Honolulu. Waiting at the gate, 6 FAA regional agents in Navy windbreakers, 2 airport police officers, 3 Department of Transportation investigators with briefcases, and a news crew, tipped off by Dr. Wilson during the flight. Cheryl disembarks first, rolling her carry-on, already planning her post-flight drink. She sees the crowd. Her smile dies. FAA Agent Morrison steps forward, badge extended. Cheryl Hampton? Yes? Federal Aviation Administration. We need to discuss tonight's flight. Cheryl's voice goes defensive immediately. I did everything by the book. We'll determine that. Come with us, please. Brian and Jake are detained next. All 3 separated. Standard interrogation protocol. Airport interview room, windowless and cold. Morrison opens a laptop, turns the screen toward Cheryl. Multiple passengers sent us video footage. Let's watch. The video plays. Shows Fred and Sarah boarding calmly. Shows Cheryl's face hardening. Shows her ripping their boarding passes, throwing them. Her voice loud and clear. You people don't belong here. Shows Fred complying. Shows Sarah staying silent. Shows absolutely no aggression from either of them. Morrison pauses the video. You claim they were belligerent. The evidence shows otherwise. They were. You filed a false incident report, Miss Hampton. That's a federal offense when it affects airline operations and involves fraud. Cheryl's mouth opens, closes. No words come. In a separate room, Jake breaks within 10 minutes. She told me to back her up, said they didn't belong in first class. I was new, scared to disagree. His voice shakes. Then I heard one of them on the phone. Something about Inspector Taylor. I looked them up. The agent leans forward. And what did you find? They're FAA senior inspectors, both of them. Jake's face crumbles. We removed federal aviation inspectors based on lies. Yes, you did. 1 a.m., Celestial Airways Headquarters, Seattle. CEO Richard Davis receives an emergency call that wakes him from sleep. Legal counsel's voice is tight with panic. Sir, we have a major situation. The 2 passengers removed tonight. They're FAA inspectors. Davis sits upright. What? It gets worse. Multiple videos. Other passengers corroborating their story. News outlets already have it. And the FAA is launching a complete audit of our entire operation. How bad? They can ground our fleet. Revoke operating certificates. Sir, this could destroy the company. By 3 a.m., the story hits social media. Celestial Airways racism trends globally within an hour. Stock price begins dropping in pre-market trading. The world is watching now. Should airline staff face criminal charges for discrimination, or is losing their job enough? Comment your thoughts below. By sunrise, Celestial Airways has lost $400 million in market value. 8 a.m. Celestial Airways emergency board meeting. Stock down 18%. Social media exploding. News helicopters circling headquarters. CEO Richard Davis faces the board. Face ashen. PR director speaks first. We issue a statement. Apologize. Fire the crew. Legal counsel shakes his head. Too late. FAA arrived at our Honolulu hub with subpoenas. For what? Everything. Maintenance records, training logs, safety reports, discrimination complaints, all of it. Davis's voice cracks. Why? This was one incident. Legal opens his laptop, shows an internal memo. Because the inspectors we removed were already traveling to inspect us for existing safety violations. Silence. We didn't just discriminate against passengers. We discriminated against federal investigators already investigating us. A 15-person FAA team swarms Celestial facilities. They find maintenance shortcuts, unapproved parts in active aircraft. They find falsified logs, repairs never completed marked as done. They find expired certifications, 12 attendants flying without current training. They find 14 discrimination complaints over 2 years. Cheryl's name in 11. Management knew, ignored everything. Celestial releases a noon statement. We apologize for any misunderstanding. Public fury erupts instantly. Misunderstanding? You removed federal inspectors for being black? A leaked 2023 email surfaces. Exercise caution with certain demographics in premium cabins. More victims emerge. A black surgeon removed for complaining about a dirty seat. An Indian entrepreneur removed for speaking Hindi. The pattern is undeniable. 2 p.m. Fred and Sarah hold a press conference with Director Johnson. Sarah speaks calmly. This isn't about us. It's about systemic discrimination affecting thousands without federal protection. Fred continues. We have authority, resources. Most victims have nothing. So reporter, what do you want? Sarah, accountability, change, criminal prosecution. Fred, every airline needs to understand this ends now. At home, Cheryl watches television. Her phone explodes. Suspended without pay. Union rep calls. Cheryl, they're recommending termination and criminal charges. Criminal? Filing false reports, civil rights violations, obstructing federal investigators. I was doing my job. Your job made international news for destroying lives. Federal prosecutors receive the file. Recommend conspiracy charges against Hampton. Day 3 after the incident, FAA headquarters, Washington, D.C. press briefing room packed wall-to-wall with national media. Cameras from every major network. Reporters standing shoulder to shoulder. Director Johnson steps to the podium. No opening pleasantries, just facts. On October 12th, Senior Inspector Sarah Taylor and Senior Inspector Frederick Taylor boarded Celestial Airways Flight 528 as part of routine undercover inspection protocol. He pauses. Let that sink in. What happened next was documented by 7 different cameras and 14 witnesses. The screens behind him light up. Video plays. The entire incident from boarding to removal. Cheryl's voice clear as crystal. You people don't belong here! Gasps ripple through the room. Inspector Sarah Taylor. Johnson's voice hardens with pride. 15 years with the FAA. 212 investigations. Expert in airline safety compliance. Recipient of the Distinguished Service Award for exposing systematic fraud at 3 major carriers. The screen shows Sarah's credentials, her commendations, her record. Inspector Frederick Taylor, 14 years with the FAA, specialist in crew training standards, former Navy pilot with 12 years military service, medal recipient. Fred's credentials appear. Military honors, federal service records. These are not troublemakers. These are 2 of our most decorated investigators. A reporter shouts, "What authority do they have?" Johnson doesn't smile. As federal inspectors, the Taylors have authority to ground aircraft immediately, suspend crew certifications, revoke airline operating certificates, conduct no-notice inspections, subpoena any records, and recommend criminal prosecution. Another reporter, can they shut down an airline? If safety violations or criminal conduct warrant it? Yes, completely. The room erupts. Johnson raises his hand for silence. During our subsequent audit of Celestial Airways, we discovered 137 maintenance violations, 43 crew certification lapses, 28 safety protocol breaches. He pauses for effect. Additionally, 14 documented discrimination complaints over 2 years, all systematically ignored by management. What's the penalty? Someone asks. Fines up to $50 million, possible criminal charges for executives, loss of operating certificates for specific routes, mandatory federal oversight for years. Cut 2. Fred and Sarah's home, suburban Virginia. Their daughter, Maya, 16, sits between them on the couch. Her phone hasn't stopped buzzing for 3 days. Mom, Dad, everyone at school is talking about this. Sarah touches her daughter's hand. We know, sweetheart. Are you okay? I saw the video. They treated you like criminals. Maya's voice cracks. Fred pulls her close. We're fine, but this is exactly why we do what we do. Sarah adds softly, so other families don't have to experience this. Maya looks at them both. You're going to change things, aren't you? Fred meets Sarah's eyes. We're going to try. Across the country, Cheryl sits in an expensive attorney's office. The lawyer, gray suit, grim expression, slides papers across his mahogany desk. Cheryl, I'll be honest, this is indefensible. But I didn't know they were inspectors. Irrelevant. You discriminated against passengers and filed false reports. Their occupation makes it exponentially worse, but you violated federal law regardless. What do I do? The attorney exhales. Pray the Department of Justice offers a plea deal, because if this goes to trial, you will lose. How bad? Federal prison, civil liability, you'll never work in aviation again. Your career is over. Cheryl's hands shake, reality finally crashing down. Meanwhile, Jake meets privately with FAA investigators. I'll testify about everything. Cheryl's pattern, the company's unwritten rules, all of it. The investigator studies him. Why help us now? Jake's voice barely whispers. Because it was wrong. I stayed silent before. Not anymore. Your cooperation is noted, but you still face consequences. I know. I deserve them. The aviation industry implodes within hours. Emergency meetings at United, Delta, American, Southwest. Every major carrier reviewing policies in absolute panic. CEOs calling legal teams. Do we have a Cheryl Hampton? Are we exposed? A leaked memo from a competitor airline surfaces. All premium cabin removals require VP approval effective immediately. The entire industry knows. One viral incident can obliterate a brand overnight. That night, Fred and Sarah sit in their hotel room in Honolulu. They stayed for the investigation. Fred stares out at the dark ocean. We could have stayed quiet. Let it go. Sarah joins him at the window. And then what? It happens to someone else next week. Think we'll actually change anything? Look at the industry scrambling. That's fear. Fear of accountability. Sarah takes his hand. We already changed things. Fred smiles sadly. I just wanted a vacation with my wife. Sarah leans against him. We'll get one, after we finish burning this down properly. The Department of Justice announces criminal investigations into Celestial Airways and crew. Phase 1, the collapse day 7. Celestial Airways stock has lost 34% of its value. $3 billion in market capitalization erased in a week. The board of directors convenes an emergency session. No press, no recordings, just 15 people deciding the fate of a company. Richard, you have to resign, today. The lead investor doesn't soften it. CEO Davis stares at faces he's known for a decade. I wasn't even on that flight. You created the culture that allowed this. The investor slides a folder across the table. Internal emails going back 3 years. You knew about discrimination complaints. You did nothing. Davis opens the folder. His own emails stare back at him. Words he wrote casually, never thinking they'd surface. First-class customer experience is paramount. Make sure our premium cabins reflect our brand image. Code. Everyone knew what it meant. I'm recommending your immediate termination. No severance, no stock options. Davis looks around the table. Nobody meets his eyes. He's done. Within hours, the financial cascade accelerates. Insurance carriers threaten to drop Celestial's coverage. Liability too high. Reputation too toxic. The pilots' union demands immediate safety reviews using the scandal as leverage for contract negotiations. The flight attendants' union fractures. Some members defend Cheryl, claiming she followed training. Most condemn her, terrified of association. Boeing and Airbus delay aircraft deliveries pending FAA clearance. Can't deliver planes to an airline under federal investigation. Credit rating agencies downgrade Celestial's bonds to junk status. Cost of borrowing skyrockets. The FAA grounds 40% of Celestial's fleet for mandatory safety inspections. Every aircraft opened, every system checked, every shortcut exposed. Flights canceled worldwide, thousands of passengers stranded. Refund requests overwhelm the system. Revenue loss in the first week, $200 million, and it's only beginning. Phase 2, criminal charges. Day 10. Federal Courthouse, Honolulu. U.S. Attorney Patricia Moore stands before a wall of cameras. Today, we are filing criminal charges against 3 individuals and Celestial Airways Corporation. She reads from prepared remarks, voice steady as steel. Cheryl Hampton, violation of civil rights under color of authority, 18 U.S.C. Section 242, filing false reports to federal investigators, conspiracy to obstruct justice. Brian Davis, flight attendant, conspiracy to violate civil rights, filing false reports. James Mitchell, former vice president of customer experience, knowing failure to address systemic discrimination. Conspiracy. Celestial Airways corporate entity, conspiracy against rights under 18 U.S.C. Section 241, pattern and practice of discrimination. The courtroom explodes with questions. Moore raises her hand. This is unprecedented, charging a corporation with civil rights conspiracy. But the evidence is overwhelming. This wasn't one incident. This was policy unwritten but enforced. Day 12. Cheryl's arraignment, federal courthouse. She arrives in handcuffs, unusual for white-collar charges, but the prosecutor made a statement. Judge Williams, stern and gray-haired, reads the charges. Ms. Hampton, you're accused of violating the civil rights of 2 federal officers while acting under color of authority. How do you plead? Cheryl's voice barely audible. Not guilty. Her attorney, expensive and sharp, stands. Your Honor, my client acted in good faith based on airline training. Prosecutor Moore interrupts. Your Honor, the defendant's actions were recorded by 7 cameras, corroborated by 14 witnesses and documented by the victims themselves. This is the most well-documented civil rights case in aviation history. Judge sets bail at $100,000. Cheryl's face crumbles as she's led away. Outside, reporters swarm her attorney. Will she take a plea? We're evaluating all options. Translation? Yes, if the government offers one. Jake's deal comes 3 days later. He pleads guilty to lesser charges, conspiracy, false reports, in exchange for full testimony against Cheryl and the airline. His sentence, 200 hours community service, $5,000 fine, 2 years probation, and a requirement to speak at diversity training sessions, part of his punishment. His aviation career is over, but he avoids prison. The night after his sentencing, Jake sits in his studio apartment and cries for 3 hours. The corporate charge shakes the industry to its foundation. Legal experts debate on every news channel. Charging a corporation with civil rights conspiracy? This could change everything. If convicted, Celestial faces $50 million in fines, mandatory federal oversight for a decade, possible loss of routes and operating certificates. Shareholders file a derivative lawsuit against the entire board of directors for breach of fiduciary duty. Phase 3, civil lawsuits day 15. Fred and Sarah file their civil lawsuit. $50 million, emotional distress, civil rights violations, punitive damages. Their attorney makes it clear at the press conference, this isn't about money. It's about sending an unmistakable message to every airline in America. Discrimination has consequences, real consequences, career-ending consequences. But it's not just Fred and Sarah. Within a week, 43 other passengers join a class action lawsuit. All people of color. All removed from Celestial flights under questionable circumstances over 2 years. Dr. Sandra Brown, black cardiothoracic surgeon. Removed from first class for being too aggressive when she requested a seat change due to a broken tray table. Rajesh Martinez, tech entrepreneur. Removed for suspicious behavior. His crime was speaking Spanish to his mother on the phone. Kim Johnson, Korean-American professor, removed for not having proper documentation, despite showing her passport 3 times. The pattern is undeniable, systematic, intentional. Discovery reveals devastating evidence. Internal emails from management with coded language. First class should look right for our premium customers. Training materials that taught crew to be aware of passengers who don't match our brand image. A bonus structure that rewarded flight attendants for maintaining cabin atmosphere. Cheryl received $1,500 the month she removed Fred and Sarah. Performance reviews praising Cheryl for excellent passenger management and maintaining standards. The company knew, encouraged it, rewarded it. Settlements begin quickly. Celestial can't afford prolonged litigation with evidence this damning. Dr. Brown, $2.3 million. Rajesh Martinez, $1.8 million. Kim Johnson, $1.5 million. Case after case, settlement after settlement. Total civil liability across all 43 plaintiffs, $67 million. Plus legal fees, $15 million. Total $82 million. And Fred and Sarah's case still pending. Phase 4, Regulatory Punishment Day 30. The FAA releases its final audit report. 400 pages of violations, failures, and systematic negligence. Total violations found, 1,247. Categories: safety maintenance, crew training, discrimination, record-keeping, emergency procedures. Director Johnson presents findings at a public hearing. Celestial Airways demonstrated a pattern of prioritizing profit over safety and civil rights over a period of at least 3 years. The FAA's orders are comprehensive and crushing. $47 million in fines for safety violations, mandatory third-party oversight for 3 years. Every decision reviewed by independent auditors. Complete retraining of all 8,000 flight attendants. New curriculum focused on implicit bias, civil rights, and de-escalation. Cost, $12 million. New discrimination reporting system with direct line to Department of Transportation. Anonymous, protected, quarterly civil rights audits. Results published publicly. 15 executives must complete federal sensitivity training. Failure means termination. The Department of Transportation adds its own penalties. $12 million in fines specifically for discrimination pattern. Requirement: Celestial must hire an independent civil rights monitor, 3-year term. Full access to all operations, annual public reporting on discrimination complaints, removals, and resolutions. The international consequences arrive swiftly. The European Union reviews Celestial's landing rights in all member countries. UK Civil Aviation Authority launches parallel investigation. Canada threatens route suspensions pending review. Australia puts Celestial on probation. One more incident, and they're banned. The final tally. 30 days after Fred and Sarah were removed from Flight 528. Direct fines and penalties, $59 million. Civil lawsuit settlements, $82 million. Lost revenue from canceled flights and groundings, $450 million. Stock market losses, $2.7 billion in market capitalization. Reputational damage, incalculable. Brand toxicity that will take years to repair. CEO Richard Davis, forced out, no severance, reputation destroyed. 2,000 employees laid off due to financial crisis, 15 executives terminated or forced to resign, and Cheryl Hampton's trial date still approaching. In a hotel conference room in Seattle, Celestial's new CEO, a former civil rights attorney, addresses remaining executives. "We are rebuilding this company from the ground up. The old culture is dead. Anyone who can't accept that should leave now. Nobody moves. Good, because the world is watching, and we will never, ever make this mistake again." Cheryl Hampton's trial begins in 14 days with worldwide media coverage scheduled. Day 45, Federal Courthouse, Honolulu, gallery overflows, media everywhere, civil rights activists, airline employees, security at every door. Cheryl Hampton sits at the defense table in a conservative blue suit trying to look sympathetic. It's not working. Fred and Sarah sit front row, perfectly still. Opening statements. Prosecutor Moore approaches the jury. This case is simple. Cheryl Hampton saw 2 black passengers in first class and decided they didn't belong. She fabricated complaints, filed false reports, weaponized security to remove them. She pauses. She didn't know they were federal inspectors. That makes it worse, but doesn't change the crime. Discrimination is discrimination. Defense attorney stands. "My client made a judgment call based on protocol and training. She acted in good faith. This is a hard-working woman being scapegoated for systemic failures. Weak. Everyone knows it." Dr. Linda Wilson's testimony. Dr. Wilson takes the stand. Civil rights attorney, 20 years experience. More. "What did you observe about the Taylors' behavior? They were polite, quiet, completely compliant, model passengers. And Miss Hampton? Aggressive, condescending. The racial bias was obvious and painful to watch." Defense cross-examines. "Isn't it possible you misinterpreted based on your own biases?" Dr. Wilson's voice turns ice. "I've litigated discrimination for 2 decades. I know bias. Miss Hampton's actions were textbook racial profiling." Jake's testimony. Jake takes the stand, looking years older, hands shaking. More. What did Miss Hampton say before approaching the Taylors? She said, "These people don't belong in first class. Back me up." Did she give a specific reason? No, she just looked at them and decided. I knew it was wrong but needed my job, so I stayed silent. His voice breaks. Then I heard Mrs. Taylor say Inspector Taylor on the phone. I looked them up. Realized we'd removed federal inspectors based on lies. Defense. You lied initially. Why believe you now? Jake looks at the jury. Because now I'm under oath telling the truth. I should have told it then. Fred's testimony. Fred wears his FAA credentials visible to the jury. More. What went through your mind when security was called? I thought, here we go again. Another humiliation for being black. He pauses. But this time was different. This time we could do something about it. Sarah's testimony. Sarah's testimony is surgical. Devastating. I've investigated 212 incidents. I know the law. Miss Hampton violated every standard. Airline policy, federal regulation, basic human decency. Defense makes a fatal error. Isn't it convenient you now have a case against an airline you were investigating? Sarah's response cuts. Convenient? We were humiliated, escorted off like criminals, our anniversary destroyed, our dignity stripped. Nothing was convenient. Silence. Cheryl's testimony. Cheryl takes the stand, gripping the armrests. More. Describe the specific behavior that concerned you. They were assertive. Assertive how? Point to one action on video. Cheryl stumbles. The way they carried themselves. As black people in first class? No, I'm not racist. Moore pulls out a report. In 12 years, you've removed 38 passengers. 29 were people of color. 76%. How many complaints were substantiated? Silence. 4. 14%. The rest fabricated, including this case. No answer. Verdict jury deliberates 4 hours. 4 women stands. On conspiracy to violate civil rights, guilty. On filing false reports, guilty. Cheryl breaks down sobbing. Sentencing 2 weeks later. Judge Williams shows zero sympathy. Miss Hampton, your actions were calculated, deliberate, part of a years-long pattern. You fabricated evidence, influenced witnesses, violated rights of federal officers dedicated to public service. Sentence, 18 months federal prison, 3 years supervised release, $50,000 fine, permanently banned from aviation work. Your career is over. Your reputation destroyed. Entirely your own doing. Cheryl is led away in handcuffs. Aftermath, Brian pleads guilty separately. 6 months home confinement, 500 hours community service, $15,000 fine. VP Mitchell pleads no contest, forced resignation, $100,000 fine, 2 years probation. Outside, a reporter asks Fred and Sarah, was this worth it? Sarah's answer is immediate. Ask the next black passenger who boards first class without fear. The verdict sends shockwaves through every airline in America. 6 months later, the aviation industry looks fundamentally different. The FAA issues Emergency Directive 2025-08, mandatory implicit bias training for all aviation personnel. Every flight attendant, pilot, gate agent in America must complete it. 8 hours of intensive training, scenario-based testing, real cases studied, including Fred and Sarah's removal. Failure means immediate loss of certification, no exceptions. Cost to the industry, $200 million. Every airline complies within 90 days. Celestial Airways barely survives. New CEO Miranda Torres, former ACLU attorney, guts the entire leadership structure. New policies implemented, real-time video review for all passenger removals. Every incident recorded, reviewed by headquarters within 1 hour, direct reporting line to Department of Transportation, bypasses management completely, anonymous employee hotline for discrimination concerns, protected whistleblowers, premium cabin removals require vice president approval, multiple witnesses, documented evidence. Celestial becomes the most heavily monitored airline in American history. Federal observers embedded in every hub, quarterly audits published publicly. The company that discriminated becomes the industry standard for accountability. Congress moves fast. Senator Williams introduces the Passenger Civil Rights Protection Act. Bipartisan support, discrimination is bad politics for everyone. Key provisions pass within 4 months. Airlines must document specific, objective reasons for passenger removal. Feeling uncomfortable, no longer sufficient. Passengers have right to request supervisor review before removal. Automatic $25,000 federal fine per discriminatory removal, up from $1,000. Creation of federal database tracking removals by race, gender, religion, national origin. Public reporting required. Criminal penalties for crew members filing false reports. The bill is officially named the Taylor-Martinez Passenger Protection Act. Fred and Sarah are invited to the signing ceremony. They decline. They're not politicians, just inspectors doing their jobs. Other major airlines scramble to avoid becoming the next Celestial. Delta updates policies overnight. United implements mandatory body cameras for flight attendants. Pilot program at 5 hubs. American Airlines partners with NAACP for training curriculum development. Southwest creates passenger advocate position. Dedicated staff to review removal decisions in real time. Alaska Airlines installs AI monitoring systems, flags potential bias patterns in crew behavior. The technology isn't perfect, but the message is clear. We're watching now. Industry-wide agreement emerges. Objective criteria required for removal. Actual policy violations. Documented safety threats. Illegal behavior. Feelings, assumptions, and vibes no longer enough. Training materials revolutionize. Airlines partner with civil rights organizations. NAACP, Asian American Legal Defense, Council on American Islamic Relations, all consulted. Real scenarios from real cases, including the video of Fred and Sarah's removal, played in every training session nationwide. The message hammered home. This is what discrimination looks like. This is what it costs. Don't do it. Cultural shift becomes measurable. Discrimination complaints drop 43% in first 6 months. Not because discrimination ended, because airlines are terrified of another Celestial situation. Fear of accountability works. Fred and Sarah are promoted. Fred to regional manager, Sarah to national safety director overseeing civil rights compliance. They speak at aviation conferences quarterly, corporate training events monthly. Their message stays consistent. Safety isn't just mechanical. It's ensuring every passenger is treated with dignity. They become the faces of reform, the living reminder of what happens when systems fail. But the work continues. A Southwest flight passenger removed, claims discrimination, investigation launched immediately. The new system works. Investigation swift, transparent, video reviewed, consequences real. The Taylor precedent cited in every case now. International impact spreads. European Union revises policies. UK updates civil aviation regulations. Canada implements similar protections. Australia follows. The International Civil Aviation Organization issues global guidance on discrimination prevention. Fred and Sarah's case becomes international case study in aviation law courses worldwide. One incident, one flight, one couple who refused to stay silent, and an entire global industry transformed. But at a regional airport, a gate agent is about to make Cheryl's mistake again. 1 year later, Fred and Sarah board a flight to Bali, their rescheduled anniversary trip, delayed 12 months by investigations, trials, testimony, first-class tickets. Celestial Airways now completely reformed. Chief Flight Attendant Maria greets them at the door. Her smile is genuine, warm, no hesitation. Mr. and Mrs. Taylor, welcome aboard. It's an honor to serve you. No questioning, no verification, no suspicion, just hospitality. They settle into seats 2A and 2B, the same seats denied a year ago. As the plane climbs through clouds, Sarah holds Fred's hand. Think about where we were last year, Fred says. Escorted off, humiliated, furious. And now? Sarah looks around. Diverse passengers filling every seat. Black, Asian, Latino, white. All belonging without question. Now we changed an entire industry. Fred squeezes her hand. Not bad for an anniversary trip. Before departure, they'd talked with daughter Maya, 17 now, preparing for college. Maya had asked the hard question. Was it worth it? The death threats, the harassment? People calling you troublemakers? Fred considered carefully. Some will always say we overreacted, that we destroyed Cheryl's life. Did you? Maya asked. Sarah replied firmly. Cheryl destroyed her own life. We held her accountable. Yes, it was hard. The threats were real. But think about Dr. Sandra Brown, Rajesh Martinez, the 43 others in our lawsuit. They fly without fear now. Fred added, think about thousands of black passengers boarding first class without being questioned, without being assumed criminals. Maya smiled. You didn't just win, you changed everything. Now, 35,000 feet up, someone approaches. Dr. Linda Wilson from that original flight, the attorney who defended them, recorded everything. "I thought that was you!" They embrace like old friends. Dr. Wilson sits across the aisle. "I've represented 8 discrimination clients since your case. We cite Taylor precedent every time. Airlines settle immediately now." Sarah smiles. "Exactly what we hoped. You armed every future victim with a weapon. They talk for an hour, sharing stories of change witnessed." Eventually, Dr. Wilson returns to her seat. Fred pulls out his tablet. An article catches his eye. Cheryl Hampton released after serving 14 months. He shows Sarah. She reads, face neutral. "You reading the full article?" Fred closes the tablet. "No, that chapter's closed." "Think she learned anything?" "I hope so. But whether she did or not, the industry did. That matters." Across the country, Jake finishes another corporate training speech. "I was part of the problem. I watched injustice and stayed silent because I was afraid. Fred and Sarah Taylor showed me what courage looks like. Now I spend every day making up for my cowardice. It doesn't erase what he did, but it's something." On the flight, Sarah gazes at endless clouds. Fred watches her. "What are you thinking?" "That sometimes you have to fight for normal, for basic dignity, for the right to exist without being questioned. And we did. We fought. We won." She turns to him. "Not just for us. For everyone after." The plane levels off. Seatbelt sign chimes. Around them, first class continues its rhythm. Passengers reading, sleeping, working. Black family in row 3. Indian couple in row 5. Hijab-wearing woman in row 1. All belonging. All unbothered. This is what normal should look like. Fred and Sarah lean back, finally at peace. 8 hours to paradise. 1 year late. But they made it. Fred and Sarah Taylor could have stayed silent. They could have accepted the humiliation. Moved on. Let it go. After all, they had careers to protect, privacy to maintain, safety to consider. But they chose accountability over comfort. They chose justice over peace. And because of that choice, an entire industry transformed. This story isn't just about an airplane. It's about every moment you've been underestimated, dismissed, discriminated against. It's about times someone abused their authority because they thought you had no power. Here's what they didn't understand. Power isn't always visible. Fred and Sarah looked like just passengers. They were federal inspectors with authority to ground airlines. You might look like just a customer, but you have a voice, a camera, a network, rights that can't be taken. You might look like just an employee, but you have evidence, documentation, leverage. Never let anyone convince you that you're powerless. Want to see more stories where karma strikes back? Subscribe and hit the notification bell. We post justice stories like this every week. Share your experience in the comments. Have you ever been discriminated against while traveling? What happened? Did you fight back? Do you think Cheryl's 18-month sentence was fair? Too harsh? Too lenient? Let us know your thoughts below. What would you have done in Fred and Sarah's position? Would you have stayed quiet or fought back? Here's the reality. Since the Taylor case, discrimination complaints in aviation dropped 43%. Not because discrimination ended, but because airlines are terrified of another celestial situation. That's the power of accountability. One couple, one flight, one decision to fight back. An entire industry changed. Think this story delivered justice? Wait until you hear about the homeless veteran who was thrown out of a luxury hotel for looking poor. Turns out, he was the billionaire investor who owned the entire hotel chain. What he did next bankrupted the manager and shut down that location permanently. That story drops next week. You won't want to miss it. Remember this, institutions count on your silence. They count on you being too tired, too scared, too busy to fight back. Fred and Sarah proved something crucial. Sometimes the person you underestimate is exactly the person who can destroy you. So next time someone treats you like you don't matter, remember this story. Remember that justice is slow but real. Remember that accountability always comes. You just have to be brave enough to demand it. Fred and Sarah weren't superheroes. They were ordinary people who refused to accept injustice. They had jobs, a daughter, a mortgage, normal lives. But when the moment came, they didn't back down. They documented everything. They followed the law. They used their authority. And they won. You have more power than you think. Your phone is a camera. Your voice matters. Your story can change systems. The question is, when your moment comes, will you stay silent or will you fight back? Hit subscribe. Turn on notifications. Because every week we bring you stories of people who refuse to be victims. Stories where the underestimated become unstoppable. Stories where justice isn't just a concept, it's a reality. This is what happens when courage meets accountability. This is what happens when silence ends. This is what happens when ordinary people demand extraordinary change. Silence is permission, courage is change, accountability is justice.